Come on in, pull up a chair and take a load off, because today I'll be reviewing and paging through Best Left Buried Deeper from Soul Muppet Publishing. Is this rules light role-playing game going to scratch that old school themed dungeon delving itch? Or should Best Left Buried Deeper be Best Left Buried? You're going to find out right after this. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. As I mentioned in the open, today I'll be reviewing and paging through Best Left Buried Deeper from Soul Muppet Publishing. This tome actually includes the Cryptdigger's Guide to Survival, the Doomsayer's Guide to Horror, and the Hunter's Guide to Monsters. It's written by Zachary Cox with Nicholas Spence, and artwork is provided by Ben Brown. The 328-page hardcover carries an MSRP of $46, or you can grab the PDF bundle over at DriveThruRPG for the current price of $28.06. Not sure where they got the 6 cents. All right, all that said, let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got Best Left Buried Deeper. I'm actually going to refer to this as Best Left Buried, because Deeper is just the volume itself. The game is Best Left Buried. A few things before we dive on in. First off, the fine folks over at Soul Muppet Publishing were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. And these days, it's important that you know that. Also, I'll be staying picture-in-picture up here, as I always do. And that means we'll be cutting off a little bit of the upper left portion of the book as we're taking a peek through. We're not going to look at each and every page, but I do want to give you a good feel for what you're going to find in Best Left Buried Deeper and share my thoughts about it as well. So take a look back here real quick. Best Left Buried Deeper is a rules light fantasy horror role-playing game where the monsters are scary and you are scared. Players are Cryptdiggers, professional dungeon divers who venture into monster-infested crypts seeking riches. Survivors might find themselves richer, but will be changed by their experience. They are often broken, beaten, and diminished, as ruined as the crypts themselves. The Doomsayer guides them on this journey, a referee who creates the threatening environments, cryptic puzzles, and terrifying monsters the Cryptdiggers face. This book contains the combined manuscripts of 3 components, already talked about those, as well as guidelines and procedures for running games. Let's dive on in. Right off the bat, do want to point out we get a bit of a warning that there is violence, mental illness, death, injury, trauma, ableism, mutilation, body horror, cannibalism, blood, addiction, drug use. Any of these things are possible in a game of Best Left Buried. All of that said, if you know your players, you know usually what kind of lines you can cross. If you don't, then you need to have a discussion. Now, that's not to say that this is like so over the top gross or anything like that. No, not at all. But there are some afflictions that the player characters can get, which are mental illnesses. And there are some that are kind of presented a little humorously, and there's absolutely no insult intended by the author. It's just kind of the game style. So if you are familiar with Powered by the Apocalypse games, you're going to feel right at home with Best Left Buried, because you're going to have 3 attributes. So you've got brawn, wit, and will. If you want to take our standard 6 attributes, brawn is your strength and constitution. Wit is your intelligence as well as your dexterity. And will is kind of along the lines of charisma and wisdom. Just kind of give you a feel for what those are. So you're going to start off with 3 points, essentially. You can give one attribute a +2, one attribute a +1, and the other is going to get a 0. Those are going to be used as modifiers to your die rolls, and essentially your action resolution is going to be, or your checks are going to be rolling 2 dice and then adding your attribute. So if it's a brawn check, you'd be rolling 2 dice and adding your attribute to it, and you're looking to get 9 or higher, and then you succeed. Easy enough. Pretty easy peasy. There is against the odds as well as the upper hand, which is disadvantage and advantage. So the upper hand, roll 3 dice, and you're going to discard the lowest. And against the odds, you're going to roll 3 dice and discard the highest, or one of the highest. And that is it. So if you want to have something, say you're a Doomsayer and you'd like to have something to be a little bit harder than usual, it's going to be against the odds. If you want it to be a little easier than usual, you're going to give the Cryptdiggers the upper hand. We also have Vigor and Grip. So Vigor is hit points, in essence. And, of course, these are derived from your core attributes. Then we also have Grip, which I find to be very cool. So Grip is sort of along the lines of your sanity, your will to live, your maybe even your own like self-determination. And you have checks against your grip, which is essentially a will check. But there are things that are going to happen where you can spend grip to reroll die rolls or avoid an injury during combat. But the thing is, if you end up at 0 grip, then you've lost your grip. Essentially, maybe it's you've lost your grip on reality. And then you're out of the game. Now, you're not necessarily dead, but if you're familiar with like Call of Cthulhu and Insanity, the game master takes control of your character, and a lot of times that character is just going to leave. Or maybe in a dungeon, they're just going to run off, and who knows? Maybe join the circus there in the dungeon. You never know. Also, Vigor, if your Vigor reaches 0, you flip a coin. Heads, character's dead. Tails, they're unconscious. So very, very rules light as far as everything here. Super easy to wrap your head around. Very easy to roll up characters as well because you're really not rolling stuff. Now you could, I mean, there are random elements with equipment in that if you wanted to roll dice. So we get a portion here talking about making the character. We have various different archetypes. You don't have to use archetypes, but these also give you an idea of creating your own archetypes as well. So if there's a particular sort of character you want to play and you don't have an archetype that fits it, as a player, you're just going to work with your Doomsayer to come up with an archetype. And the archetypes will normally have some sort of a benefit. They usually have an advancement, which is a benefit that is a bonus. It's a special ability that the character gets. They will also normally have some sort of negative factor as well. So we get a breakdown on equipment, inventory, considering like your encumbrance, and that is super easy. Your equipment, we talk about weapons. The weapons, there's no huge breakdown into, oh, well, what's the difference between a Morning Star and a flail? No, it's just a hand weapon. We have light weapons. We have heavy weapons. We have thrown weapons. We have ranged weapons. And you could even have gunpowder weapons if you'd like, if that's the sort of setting that you'd like to have. Combat itself. So combat itself is pretty easy. You're not looking at the 9 or higher success though. So it's just a little bit different. So in combat, what you're going to do is you're going to roll 3 dice. And you're going to have an armor rating for your character, creatures, NPCs. They all have an armor rating. And the armor rating is going to be anywhere from around 7 to 11. So what you need to do is you're going to be rolling your dice. Let's say, as an example, I was using a rapier. So a rapier is not going to use brawn as far as its bonus, right, as its modifier. It actually uses wit. So let's say I've got a wit of 2. That's one of the reasons why I'm using a rapier. I'm going to roll 3 dice. Let's say I'm going up against a creature with an armor of 8. I'm going to roll my 3 dice. And then I am going to take the dice and I need to meet or exceed the armor rating of my target. Remember, I said 8. I've got a width of 2. So I'm going to take 2 dice. You can only take 2 dice. You're going to put them together. You can add your modifier. You're going to look to equal or best that armor rating. So I've got a width of 2. So that's now 9. So I have bested the armor of 8. So now on that 3rd die, that's the damage I do. So that's the damage to vigor that I will do. And we're not talking about creatures with, dozens of hit points, vigor points. Not at all. So this is a damn good hit. Now, if I had a 6, if that damage die is a 6, I would also do an injury. And it's kind of like a critical hit. I would do an injury to my target as well. This goes for player characters also. So if the Doomsayer is rolling dice for monsters attacking and something like that happens, 6 is also an injury to a player character. But the Cryptdigger can choose to spend a grip point to avoid that injury. Grip is an interesting resource for you to utilize. And it is a limited resource because it's not real easy to get grip back. The best way is to actually leave the crypt and go to the city and pamper yourself, relax in a room, and then you can get a lot more grip back. I really like the whole grip mechanic. It's very interesting. It's very cool. We have advancements, which in essence are bonuses. They're special abilities, might be special equipment that the player character has. We get a section talking about playing the game. It's super easy. I pretty much explained all the mechanics except for an observation check. So an observation check, you're just rolling dice and 2 dice, 9 or higher. Now there could be the upper hand. There could be against the odds as well. So you might have the 3 dice, but you're still only going to have 2 dice that you're adding together. You need 9 or higher. And the Doomsayer may call for you to make an observation roll. So that is a possibility that maybe your characters would know something and something would stand out to them that maybe isn't standing out to you as a player. So that might be something as well. I should also point out that you never roll more than 3 dice. So if you had the upper hand twice and against the odds once, because they do stack, you would actually only be getting the upper hand. That's it. Now, it is possible that, let's say you have 3 upper hands, well, then they kind of add together and you automatically succeed. Just like if you had 3 against the odds, and there's some discussion about how to use the upper hand and against the odds. If you have 3 against the odds, then it's impossible. You cannot succeed. All right. So the next section we're going to get into, we've got some monsters, and this is a section here where it's discussing more along the lines how you create monsters. how you can build monsters. And it's very, very easy for you to take a monster manual from another game and boil those creatures down into, in essence, what are their special abilities, and build them in Best Left Buried very, very easily. So there is that. We get some info about running the game. There's actually some pretty cool advice about Best Left Buried. Also, one thing that's very cool about this game is the author, Zachary Cox, has a clear vision for what he wants this game to be. So it's supposed to be scary. It's supposed to be spooky. It's supposed to almost be like, you know, Lovecraftian Call of Cthulhu kind of, oh my gosh, the player characters are shaken. They're losing their sanity. That sort of game, but in a fantasy setting as well. You can use this if you wanted to just run fantasy games. There is magic. There are magic items. Magic is effectively the advantages. So there's one advantage that kind of covers, it's a single advantage, but it could be maybe you can shoot lightning bolts, or maybe you shoot fireballs, or any kind of like magic missiles kind of thing. So this is a very narrative game. So don't expect a whole lot of crunch as far as like combat tactics and you know, how far can I move? How many feet can I move in a round? Combat rounds are like 10 seconds. So we get some discussions of the camp. So one of the aspects that's also very interesting about Best Left Buried is that the player characters are Cryptdiggers. Now, thinking Cryptdigger, kind of like, yeah, like Ditch Digger. I mean, are these, you know, like the lowest of the low? Society looks down upon them. No, actually, that's not the case. They're actually very well respected because they're adventurers. But the adventurers belong to a company. They belong to a group that is, in essence, looking for treasure, looking for riches in these various different locations. So you've got your camp. Not only do you have the camp where it's going to provide a lot of opportunities for role-playing and having cool NPCs, and for the player characters to take a break from the horrors of whatever they're exploring, it's also a great way for you to replace characters that get killed, because this can be a damn lethal game. So we get a few areas here where we got like a lot of random tables for a lot of variety and different things. So that's, if you're used to like the OSR, you see a lot of random tables from time to time. We also get different optional rules. And the thing I like about the optional rules is it explains, why would you even use this? So grab Bag Initiative by Troika and use its initiative system. Why? Troika rocks. I thought that was kind of funny. But I mean, as an example, party initiative. When combat starts, roll a D6. Because normally what you're going to do is you roll a D3, which is D6 divided in half, plus your wit, and maybe you have a modifier for your weapon because bigger, heavier weapons are slower, and like a rapier would be faster. Then you're going to get initiative and go in initiative order. On this, it's just party initiative. Roll D6, 4 to 6. Every member of the party side goes first. 1 to 3, all the monsters go first. Each side decides their turn's order amongst themselves. Why? Rolling initiative is time intensive, and you want something swingy but dramatic. Kind of cool. So the toolbox is just providing you with various different optional rules that you can utilize. We get essentially 2 adventures. We get a cool hex crawl, as you can see. This is the map right there, and it is keyed to various different locations. Some of those locations are encounters. Some of them are dungeons, as you see here. So you're going to see the artwork throughout. All right, I got to be honest, and I don't mean any offense to Ben Brown. I'm not super keen on the art. It's just not my bag of tricks. It's not terrible. It's not horrible. It's not like some artwork I've seen in role-playing games where I thought, why in the world is this artist getting work? Because this is horrible. No, it's not that. It's just, it's all right. We get different gazetteer information about the game world. This is all essentially Doomsayer facing, really. So going through that. Then we get into monsters, which is pretty much the hunter's guide to monsters. But we get a lot of really cool information about creating monsters, the various different monsters and their motivations. Why are they in this location? We get a bestiary that's going to have a lot of our traditional fantasy creatures in it. The adaptations, which, as I had mentioned before, you can kind of take monsters from a monster manual and boil them down to essentially their special abilities, which would be adaptations. So we've got a list of all of those. Now, there are some unusual creatures and unique NPCs and creatures that are in this bestiary as well. So it's not just rehashing D&D's monster manual at all. All right. And that's going to kind of wrap it up. We get Misshapen Magic, which is like really awful, kind of like dark magic. And we finish up with some monster crafting. So if you want to be able to craft from monster parts, you got some information about doing that as well. And that pretty much wraps up the book. So there you've got Best Left Buried Deeper, which is from Soul Muppet Publishing. Let's swing on over to the other camera so I can provide some final thoughts and a review score. So a few different things. So first off, as far as mechanics, this is not reinventing the wheel by any stretch of the imagination. If you're familiar with Powered by the Apocalypse or some other lightweight, rules light role-playing games, a lot of this is going to be very, very familiar. Where Best Left Buried stands out, though, is the clear vision for the sort of game that this is going to be. Now, I should point out, even though you're Cryptdiggers, you're not always exploring crypts. The player characters could be exploring a castle or a city or the wilderness. But it's supposed to be kind of a dark setting. It's not grim dark. It's not like, oh, the world is ending, there's nothing we can do about it. Nothing like that. But it is supposed to be a darker fantasy setting. And I love the fact that the player characters are adventurers. They're part of a company, a society, a group that is looking to enrich itself. And you've got like a quartermaster that the player characters report to, and they sell their treasures to, and they get resupplied. And I love it. If you're a fan of, say, the Black Company novels, you're certainly going to dig this. The rules are really easy to wrap your head around. I would say this is a perfect first role-playing game for any players out there, any potential game masters, or I guess I should say Doomsayers out there. I think Best Left Buried makes a perfect introductory role-playing game, especially if you're looking for kind of a darker vibe to it. Also kind of reminds me a little bit of Darkest Dungeon, if you are familiar with that PC game. Of course, we've got the early access of Darkest Dungeon 2. As you can tell, I'm a fan. So with the afflictions and things like that, and I like how you can easily replace killed characters or characters who flip out and run off and things like that by going back to your camp, which you've got other replacements there as well. You've got recruiters bringing new people to the company. So like that a lot. There's a lot to recommend with Best Left Buried Deeper. Even if you might not be looking at this to run as is, it is a treasure trove of ideas, especially the sections about creating monsters, using monsters as NPCs, how to make your monsters more exciting, all that in here. In a case like that, if you just want to use this to crib cool things to add to your own role-playing game, you might just want to pick up the bundle from DriveThruRPG, grab the PDFs. But I like this a lot. I think this is very, very well done. Once again, I'm not super keen on the artwork, and the mechanics are not revolutionary by any stretch. But all in all, really did enjoy reading Best Left Buried Deeper. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I give this tome a very, very solid 9 out of 10. I think it is that good. And as a game master, you might want to add it to your collection just for inspiration and for nuggets of ideas to utilize if you're running a fantasy role-playing game. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when I upload videos such as this review, it'll also tell you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. Of course, don't forget, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you will not find on the YouTube channel. Do want to also mention, pretty exciting all throughout October. We got a lot going on all month long on the live stream, all role-playing games. We are looking at, talking about role-playing games. That is the only games we are taking a look at. Now, there's news about board games, don't get me wrong, but the actual games that we take a look at each and every show, all RPGs. And many of these are reviews, because every day in October, you will find a brand new review from the Gaming Gang. Now, it might be a written review, might be a video like this, but each and every day through October is a new review. And finally, every evening throughout October, I'm hosting old-time radio shows that are spooky fun with the Gaming Gang October Spooktacular 2022. And you can find those episodes on thegaminggang.com at 9 p.m. Central each and every night. All right, thank you very much for taking time out to watch this video. And as always, here's hoping you and yours get to enjoy plenty of great gaming together with your gang. Oh, hey, you're still here. That's okay. You don't have to leave just yet. In fact, why don't you subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel right here, or take a peek at the latest live stream, or even find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks again for watching.